Hey there, it's Lara. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for being here. So still recovering from COVID. COVID hit our house the last, I guess about 2 weeks ago now. And one by one, we all got it. Some worse than others, and I was one of the worst ones. And thankfully, our whole household is fully vaxxed. I can't imagine otherwise. And so anyways, we're on the mend, and most of us are pretty much good to go. You'll probably hear a little bit of my nasally voice still. I have some head congestion, and I'm still pretty tired. That's one of the things that seems to be lingering, is this lack of energy and having to kind of like rest whenever you expend any physical energy. So anyway, but I'm here, and I wanted to be here to do this video for you on the new moon in Pisces that's coming up on March 2nd. So we're going to talk all about that in the video today, and I'm going to take you through all 12 signs like I always do, and speak to where this is happening for you, the themes that it's touching on, and some other things that are happening in relation to this new moon. A lot's going on in the world, isn't it? This last moon cycle that began with the new moon in Aquarius, which happened February 1st or 2nd, depending on where you live in the world, which, was the Lunar New Year, the start of the Lunar New Year. It's been a really tricky moon cycle, and we saw the peak of that on February 16th at the full moon in Leo. And I spoke about that in my last video. And when I was contemplating what to title that video, I usually try to come up with some kind of a catchphrase. And I kept the word captivated or captivating kept coming to mind. And that's what I used. And sure enough, have we been captivated globally, in our own country here in Canada, and in our own personal lives in some way, shape, or form. Some of us more so than others, right? So, yeah, there's been a lot, very dramatic. It was a very dramatic Leo full moon, in true Leo style. And now we're in that point, as I'm recording this, of the moon cycle when things are starting to wane. And in fact, the day I'm recording this, February 23rd, we've got the moon in the last quarter square phase. The moon is in Sagittarius, right? And in that last quarter square, that last 90-degree angle of the moon phase, it's a point in the cycle where we can have a bit of a crisis in, consciousness, so to speak. That's what Dane Rudyard called it. But really, what that means is whatever got off the ground at the new moon, which in this case would have been, like I said, the new moon in Aquarius at the beginning of February, it reached the precipice 2 weeks later at the full moon in Leo. We had the first quarter square before that. And now we're at that point where it's like, how'd that work for us? Was that the right thing to do? Are we going to move forward? Are we going to carry on with whatever this is? Are we going to shift directions? Do we need to wind things down? Do we need to reevaluate? Do we need to let this go? So that's where we're sort of at. And it can be a time even of like, where we're having, some people may be having some regrets about what's transpired over the moon cycle, and thinking like how, that didn't really go according to plan, or that wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And so what do I do next, right? And so for this next little bit, until we reach the new moon in Pisces, we're in this sort of winding down phase. And it's a time of more inward contemplation, and taking a stepping back from what's been going on to sort of think on it and reflect and decide, where we're going to go from here. So that's where we're at. And The other thing I want to mention to you, there's many things, you know, it's a big time in the astrology. And on that note, I'm not sure if you got a chance to tune into the first episode of Changing of the Gods. I spoke about that in my last video. I've talked about it on social media, but it's this documentary series that was released yesterday. And it's based on Richard Tarnas's work in Cosmos and Psyche. And it's talking about the Uranus Pluto cycle. And you know, the first episode sort of laid the foundation. So if you haven't caught that yet, then I think you can still sign up to watch the free previews. So I'll pop a link to that below if you want to check it out. There'll be another one released today, and so there's 9 episodes. Overall, I thought it was really good. I have 1 or 2 criticisms, says the Virgo rising, but you know, that's okay. I'm not here to talk about that right now, but I'd be curious to know if you saw what you thought, and I'm looking forward to the future episodes. So anyways, all that to say, you know, there's a lot going on in the astrology, and we've just had that exact moment of the United States Pluto return that you've probably heard other astrologers talking about, and I've mentioned it. I haven't gone into details because a lot of other people are talking about that, and you can find out lots of information about it, right? But essentially, Pluto has returned to the exact place it was in the sky at the birth of the United States, right? And July 4th, 1776, correct? I know my Canadian history better than American history, which is probably good because I live in Canada. So anyways, and even then, I'm not an expert, admittedly. But the point is, this is a time of really a great reckoning. And the USA has never experienced a Pluto return before because it's not old enough to have done that. But you know, Pluto was at what was it, like 27 Capricorn when the USA came into official existence as a country, and that's where it's returned to. And so there's this time of a reckoning, so to speak. And if you look back through history at Pluto returns of other countries and nations, you get a feel for what, you know, that really brings about. So I'm going to leave that there. If you're curious, just, you know, you'll find all kinds of information online about that. But let's dive into this new moon and what's happening in association with that, because I feel like it's a ray of hope in some ways, and we could use some of that, right? So we've got the new moon on March 2nd, 2022, happening at 12 degrees Pisces, and it's 12:34 p.m. Eastern time. Is the exact moment when the moon is new. So you can adjust accordingly for where you live. And this new moon is in a conjunction with Jupiter, its ruler. So at any new moon, the sun and the moon come together, right, in the sky to conceive of something new, to birth something new. There are new seeds planted in some way, shape, or form. And this happens on a sort of mundane level, like in terms of global events and that sort of thing. But it also happens in our personal lives, right? And in this particular case, it's happening at wherever 12 degrees of Pisces sits in our chart. So what house is that? And what themes does that speak to? That's where we can look for this fresh start. And I'll get to that a little bit later in the video, so sit tight. But Jupiter is at 14 degrees of Pisces. So within 2 degrees, it's quite close to this new moon. Sun and the moon coming together to conceive of something new, and Jupiter is right there amplifying this energy. And actually, that's one of the things that Jupiter does. That's one of the things that Jupiter is known for, is the amplification of things, right? The Jupiter is the big gas giant, and it's associated with growth and abundance and optimism and the expansion of things. It's also associated with things like philosophy and wisdom and justice, which we're seeing a focus on, I think, right now as well. So I'm actually going to read you from Richard Tarnas's Cosmos and Psyche, right? What he says about Jupiter and the significations of Jupiter, according to Richard Tarnas. So Jupiter, first of all, as I mentioned to you, is the ruler of Pisces, right? The ancient ruler of Pisces. In modern astrology, folks say Neptune rules Pisces. And when I was first really learning, that's kind of the way I learned, but have since come to understand Jupiter as the true ruler of Pisces. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius. But Neptune definitely has an affinity for Pisces, and Neptune is in Pisces as well. And that's significant, and we're going to talk about why that is in a second. But I just want to read to you here from Cosmos and Psyche, and I think I'm going to have to put my glasses on for a second because the print is very small. Okay, Jupiter, the principle of expansion, magnitude, growth, elevation, superiority, the capacity and impulse to enlarge and grow, to ascend and progress, to improve and magnify, to incorporate that which is external, to make greater wholes, to inflate, to experience success, honor, advancement, plenitude, abundance, prodigality, excess, surfeit, the capacity or inclination for magnanimity, optimism, enthusiasm, exuberance, joy, joviality, liberality, breadth of experience, philosophical and cultural aspiration, comprehensiveness, and largeness of vision, pride, arrogance, aggrandizement, extravagance, fecundity, fortune, and providence. Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods. So that's what Richard Tarnas has to say about Jupiter. And of course, a big giant snowplow is outside my window right now, distracting me. We had a lot of snow the last few days. Anyways, that's what Jupiter signifies in astrology. And so you get a feel for what Jupiter does. Jupiter is known as the great benefic, right? So thought to be the planet associated with luck and abundance and these sorts of things. But like with anything, there are two sides to the coin, so to speak. And so, you know, Jupiter can expand all the good stuff, but, you know, and it tends to be very helpful, but we also have to be aware of the fact that, you know, like the planets don't sort of take sides, right? Jupiter will also expand things that we may not want to grow out of control. And we can run the risk of kind of taking things too far, being too optimistic, going too over the top, right? And so that's something to be mindful of at the time of this full moon, and in general with Jupiter in Pisces. You know, when a planet is in its home sign, it is true to form. And so it's able to really do its job very effectively and efficiently. And Jupiter's job, as I just mentioned, is all of those things associated with these notions of, like, you know, expansion. And so we want to make sure that we're focusing on and expanding and putting our you know, our search for wisdom and truth and justice in the right, you know, places. We're looking through the right lens there. So a couple other things about Jupiter. Jupiter is in detriment in the signs of Virgo and Gemini, because those are the opposites of the two signs that it rules, right? So far away from home there, not super comfortable when it's in Virgo and Gemini. And it is what we call exalted in the sign of Cancer, which means it is revered there. It is like royalty coming to visit when Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer. And it's in its fall in Capricorn, so not a welcome guest in the sign of Capricorn. So as this new moon happens in a conjunction with Jupiter, injecting that faith, that hope, that optimism, that growth and abundance and luck, and hopefully not, you know, the the bravado and things that could potentially get us in trouble, right? But as it's doing this, the moon is also in a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. Sextiles are conversations between the planets where the planets are in a 60-degree angle to each other. And they are positive conversations, generally conversations of opportunity. The planets are in a friendly conversation with each other, and there is opportunity here for to bring something good and to bring something pleasant, into the situation. Sextiles are of the nature of Venus. And so generally speaking, though, we have to be on the lookout for that opportunity and seize it when it comes, right, into our experience and our awareness. So with a sextile to Uranus and Taurus here, and I apologize because I forgot to print out the chart for you, but we can the opportunity that presents itself for this sort of new beginning at the time of the new moon can kind of jolt us, right, Uranus, into the future. It's an opportunity potentially for like radical sudden shifts, for liberation from what's been holding us back, and as individuals, from what's been holding us back in that area of life, right, in terms of where Pisces sits for us. And then we have Neptune at 22 degrees of Pisces at the time of this new moon. So it's not in a conjunction with the new moon, but it's co-present in the sign. And it is in a sextile with the North Node in Taurus, and in a trine with the South Node in Scorpio. So making a positive conversation to the nodes, which are, essentially our sort of past and future trajectory, or our collective zeitgeist, right? Our collective focus, what we are moving sort of away from with the South Node, or what we are needing to release, let go of, have learned those lessons, take what is useful from that and leave the rest. What needs to be detoxified and left behind, sort of thing. And also then what needs to be focused on and move towards, or what, not even necessarily what needs to be, but what will draw our attention over this time, right? And where those nodes are, as we've talked about, the eclipses follow. And so we're going to talk about eclipses in some videos to come, because we're moving into eclipse season in the spring. So that will be a topic of conversation that we'll cover then. But so Neptune in Pisces sextiling the nodes of the moon, right? Again, this opportunity here in a sextile for something more spiritual. Let's, I'm hesitating to use that word these days because of things that are going on in the world right now. But anyways, something more focused on the collective, on how we are all connected. On Neptune is also a planet that rules things like film and art, like photography, where you're like seeing an image of reality, but the image itself is not reality. That's a good way to conceptualize Neptune. So Neptune can have us seeing things as we want them to be and not as they are. It can have us feeling hopeful, but it can also, again, two sides to every coin. It can also have us feeling or being deluded in some way, shape, or form. I think there is a delivery coming to my door right now. So somebody is probably going to ring the doorbell or knock, and I'm going to ignore them. So they'll just leave the package outside. Anyway, so we've got, okay, just a little tap and leaving the package. That's good. Sorry about that. I don't want to stop the video. Anyway, so that's something to be mindful of in terms of Neptune, but in general, again, it's a sextile, right? So an opportunity here. There's an opportunity. So the other thing that's happening at the time of this new moon is that we've got Venus and Mars and Pluto all coming together in Capricorn. So 26 degrees, Venus will be at 26 degrees at the time of this new moon, and Mars and Pluto will be at 27 degrees, right? And again, that 27 degree point marks the US Pluto return. Oh my goodness. And this person just lost his front bumper on my street. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's a little Mars Pluto moment for you there. Yikes. Anyway, I'm very distracted. I'm sorry. This was something. So we've got Venus, Mars, Pluto conjunct in Capricorn, and they are all in a sextile again to the South Node in Scorpio, and in a trine to the North Node in Taurus. And incidentally, Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, so revered there, looked to as a special guest. And so you can see that there's all these like interesting, positive sort of aspects going on between, you know, the nodes of the moon and certain planets. And we've got this new moon happening in a conjunction with Jupiter, the great benefic. So all that to say, there is a profound sense of fatedness at this time. I really feel like, you know, the nodes of the moon tend to point towards fate and fated events. And I think that the thing to remember is that the extent to which we experience that and how we experience it, right? The quality of that experience seems to depend on the approach that we take and the approach that we have taken to date. So what do I mean by that? Well, how willing have we been in the past, right, to really face reality rather than trying to escape it? Because there's a real potential here to take all of this energy and to bury our heads in the sand with it. To, you know, this combination of Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces can have that effect. And so I think that's the one that's the major caveat, that's the major caution, is that we really need to be mindful that there is a potential here that we may not be seeing things clearly. We may be, or we may be just wanting to escape reality. And so we're doing that in all kinds of unhealthy ways, or just by ignoring what's going on around us. You know, like if I don't look at that, it's not real. So that's the big caution. And Jupiter and Neptune are coming into a conjunction, which is going to happen in April. Actually, they will be in an exact conjunction in early April. It's the 11th or 12th, I can't remember. So we're moving towards that energy, right? And so yes, cause for hope, cause for optimism and faith and all of those things, but also a very big, you know, flashing sign that says now is not the time for escapism. It's not the time for delusion. It's not the time to bury your head in the sand. It's not the time to sit back and just trust that everything's going to fall into place perfectly without your active participation. Again, all those sextiles happening, you know, opportunity is there, but sextiles tend to denote opportunity that has to be acted on. Otherwise, we lose it. Okay, so that's what I want to say. The other thing is, you know, like the answer to those questions, how have we been managing so far? You know, in terms of our willingness to face, you know, certain realities in our own individual lives and in the world in general. The answer to that will likely determine how it goes moving forward, right? And there's always a chance to reevaluate that. There's always the opportunity. Here we are at this last quarter moon that I was just mentioning to you. You know, it's a good opportunity to have a sit and a think on that. And like, you know, particularly as it's in Sagittarius, thinking about our worldview right now, thinking about our philosophies and our belief systems and where those come from and what they're rooted in, and you know, do we need more learning and wisdom and information to be able to make a more sort of educated and intelligent, you know, to formulate our worldview with more awareness, these sorts of things, right? So we can definitely be on the receiving end of blessings, but we mustn't just expect that everything is just going to easily fall into place. I mean, that can happen for some folks, and you know, Godspeed. I hope it does. Be nice to have a break, right, from the challenges that we've all been facing. Trust me, I get it. The last, I mean, we have been through some really some significant challenges in our lives, right? I'm about to turn 53 in March, in early March, and we have been through some shit, let me tell you, my friends. And that's not to say it's not a competition. I know a lot of people have been. My point in saying that is that the last couple of years have been unbelievably challenging, and it's been like a sustainable kind of not a sustainable, a sustained level of pressure, right? And of constant having to like just feeling like Sisyphus rolling that boulder up the hill. I'm sure many of you can relate. So you know, I really do hope that many of us do experience the hand of grace when it comes to this new moon. And there is potential for that, definitely. There is a greater sense of hope, you know, kind of attached to this new moon. And but what I was saying is that we should be ready to recognize and to receive, you know, grace, but also willing to rise to the occasion, you know, to the occasions that present themselves to us right now. Escapism can be a really tempting under this influence, sort of following the shiny objects, right? And hoping that they lead to like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There can be a real temptation to do that right now. It's a nice idea, but it's not one based in the reality of the moment and of the times. And you know, there's a lot of energy going on, speaking of the reality of the moment and our sort of earthly existence. There's a lot of energy in the earth signs. You know, there's the Uranus and Taurus piece there that is disrupting things like our resources and our you know, food supplies and our financial markets and the very earth on which we stand, right? And our sense of material stability. And there is also all of this energy that's been going on in Capricorn, right? So our worldly ambitions, so to speak, and our sense of authority, and you know, those hierarchical structures and traditions and things like this. There's a lot of energy going on in these earth signs. This is about practical reality on earth, right? Not about some airy-fairy utopia. That wouldn't that be nice? But we have to do something to make things better. And, you know, contrary to what some folks are going to tell you, if you're here for me to tell you that all you have to do is, you know, raise your vibration and, you know, get in the right frequency and all this stuff, you're in the wrong place. Sorry, that's not what I'm going to tell you. I've been there, done that. I have been, I got the gold star for spiritual bypassing for a while. Okay. I know all about it. I'm here to tell you that that's not going to get us where we want to go. So, you know, and back, you know, back to focusing on what I was talking about, you know, the energy of the earth signs here. This new moon will culminate in 2 weeks' time at the full moon in Virgo, the third earth sign, right? About what we are devoted to and what we have reverence for, and about our connection to our daily devotions, our discernment. A lot of people need to be more discerning, I think, as a lesson that a lot of us are learning right now. So, yeah, hope, faith, I'm looking at my notes, a connection to something bigger than ourselves, the recognition that we're all in this together, and the wisdom and the willingness to be on the right side of history are all things that I sort of recommend packing on this journey, right? This new moon journey for this moon cycle. And if you're a person that has significant placements from about 7 to 17 degrees of Pisces, like the closer you get to that sort of 12-degree point where the new moon is happening, but 7 to 17 degrees, you'll feel this. It'll be a more dynamic lunation for you, right? So Pisces and the other 3 mutable signs, which are Virgo and Gemini and Sagittarius. So those folks with those placements will have a more sort of personal and dynamic experience with this new moon. And then if you're somebody that has placements between 7 and 17, say, of Scorpio or Cancer, the other 2 water signs, then this lunation, this new moon, is in a trine to those placements. And this is, you know, lovely, because trines are of the nature of Jupiter. Trines are uplifting. Trines are that hand of grace that comes in. Trines make things more easy and flowing. But the caution is, don't take that for granted. You know, be aware. And if you have planets and placements between 7 to 17 degrees, Capricorn or Taurus, those 2 earth signs, other 2 earth signs, you're getting hit with a sextile from this new moon, right? So again, lovely aspect here, one of opportunity that you need to, like, you know, seize the opportunity. So that's what's going on for everybody. And when I say if you have placements, what do I mean by that? I mean, do you have your sun, your moon, your rising, one of your angles, you know, your MC, your IC? Do you have like a personal planet like your Venus or your Mars, or, you know, Mercury, or a cluster of planets around those degrees, right? And the closer you are to the 12-degree point, the more potent it will be for you. Having said that, we are all experiencing this new moon. We all have Pisces somewhere in our birth chart, right? Pisces occupies a specific whole sign house in your birth chart, in everybody's birth chart. And we know what whole sign house that is based on what your rising sign is. And that's why when you're listening to a general forecast like this, it's best to listen first and foremost to your rising sign. Rising sign first, and then listen to your sun sign for like a sort of a more secondary influence, or you know, an added layer kind of thing. And you can listen to your moon sign as well, which tends to have a more internal focus. It's the focus on, you know, kind of the emotional piece in many ways, although that's not the only thing that the moon signifies. But really listen, if you're going to listen to one, listen to your rising sign if you know it, right? And so with that, having said that, what we're looking for here at the time of this new moon is to intentionally begin something new or conceive of something new that feels hopeful, that feels full of wisdom. And maybe, you know, it might be connected in some way to justice, because these are Jupiter themes. It might be connected in some ways to spirituality, to compassion and empathy, right? To a sense of wonder, to the arts even. These are all things connected to Pisces, right? And one thing we have to be mindful of here is our boundaries, because Pisces ruled by Jupiter and you know, some say co-ruled by Neptune, can be can have trouble with boundaries. Pisces can have a hard time. I'm a Pisces sun sign, right? Pisces can have a hard time not knowing where they end and the other begins, kind of thing, right? Pisces can get caught up in the rooting for the underdog to its own detriment, to wanting to be the martyr, right? So we need to be mindful that boundaries are necessary at this time as well. So whatever, you know, this new thing is, can have that all of those flavors, and it will be best to whatever your beginning. It focuses on whatever the themes are that that Pisces occupies in your chart, encompass, and I'm going to talk about that. But sometimes we intentionally plan to begin something new or conceive of something new, and that's great. That's why, you know, we talk about the moon cycles, because we can use them intelligently and intentionally. But sometimes the universe has its own plans, or things happen that are beyond our control, and so we may look for something new happening in our lives that wasn't necessarily initiated by us, right? Okay, so let's begin. And we're going to take it through the signs now, speak to where is this new moon conjunct Jupiter happening in your chart. All right, so we're going to start with Pisces, of course, because Pisces, this is your new moon. And happy birthday if you're a Pisces sun sign, because the sun is going to be moving into your sign very shortly. When does the sun move into Pisces? You'd think I would know that, being the Pisces sun. Oh, the sun is in Pisces. My gosh. COVID brain. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. The sun moved into Pisces on Friday, February 18th. So happy birthday, Pisces sun signs. And if you're a Pisces rising, this new moon is happening in your first house. So it's important. It is your, you know, if you're a Pisces sun, this is your solar return. So it's the start of your personal new year. And if you're a Pisces rising, again, it's happening in your first house, which is all about the self. The focus is all on you. It's on your approach to the world, how you come at the world, your trajectory. You know, it's kind of like the jumping off point that you come at life from. It speaks to your physical vitality and appearance. So sometimes health can play a role here, because it is about the body in many ways, the physical body, your physical incarnation. It speaks to your character and your personality. and how people perceive you. And what they, the rising sign is like how you kind of, like I say, how you come at the world. What's your approach? And how do people perceive you? People will often sort of notice the quality of your rising sign before anything else, right? Because that's what's most obvious. So with a new moon in your first house, this can be a time, and especially conjunct Jupiter, for a hopeful new beginning and like a fresh start in life in general. A fresh start for you. This fresh start may have something to do with, it could involve any area of life, really, but it has an overall impact on your sense of who you are in the world. It has an impact on your vitality. Jupiter is uplifting and optimistic, so it can make you feel lighter, more jovial, more joyful, more hopeful. Also Jupiter in the first house can have people kind of going over the top. It can be a time where there's like a literal expansion, of the physical in some way, of your physical self. It can be a time where, with Jupiter in your first house, you may be coming across as more hopeful and having more faith and maybe more wisdom, to share with others as well. This is the axis of relationship, and the first house is about you, the self, right? So your relationship to yourself is getting an injection of hope and faith and optimism and all of those Jupiterian things. So the one caveat is just be mindful of that tendency, right, of Jupiter and Neptune to kind of have us really looking through those rose-colored glasses, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's just, be aware that all may not be as it initially appears. And so things might not go exactly as, you're expecting or planning. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be good, right? And so if you're the one setting these sort of intentions, those intentions will be best served if they were focusing on, again, your physical vitality, how you approach the world, even your appearance, or, if that's something that's important to you at this moment in time, or your trajectory in life. It's the first house is like the hull of the ship, right? It's like, what direction are we pointed here? So those are things to keep in mind if you are beginning something new with intent at the time of this new moon. So that's for you, Pisces. And of course you've got that that Venus-Mars Pluto conjunction happening in Capricorn as well, but I'm not going to go into that, but you can that's just something to take note of as well. All right, and we're going to move on to Aquarius. So Aquarius, for you, this new moon is kicking off something new in your second house as it relates to your own personal resources, your money, right? The money you make, your finances, and your personal possessions, your material possessions, as well as I see resources as also your time and energy, right? And the second house speaks to what you value, what you place value and worth on. And it can be how you value yourself, how much you charge for your services, those sorts of things as well. So there's an opportunity here for something really hopeful, and for maybe some abundance to come in with the conjunction to Jupiter here. And this can be, an injection of cash, or, something like, there's all kinds of ways this can play out. This can be selling some personal possessions and making some money, maybe more than you anticipated. This can be making money through Piscean pursuits, the arts, film, photography, you know, those sorts of things. It can be a time where you have more hope and faith and the opportunity to gain more wisdom when it comes to, your finances and how you manage them, how you make your money. It could be a time where you're getting a raise. It could be a time when you're intending to ask for a raise, and that could go well for you, as long as you're not having this as long as your expectations aren't completely out of whack, right? Like we talked about that potential influence of Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces, where we can just take things a little too far. So the one thing I will say here is watch your spending. This can be a time where, you may be anticipating an injection of cash. And so you go out and you buy all this stuff. And then maybe, that was a little bit too optimistic and you end up not maybe getting as much as you thought you were going to, or it takes longer or something like that, right? But ideally, this is a really lovely new moon in your second house. Again, full of hope and optimism and an opportunity for growth and to gain wisdom as it relates to those second house themes. So look to whatever you start at this point in time of the new moon, March 2nd, right around that time, or a couple days following, to reach a point of culmination at the Virgo full moon, which is in a couple weeks' time, and then further down the road, 6 months from now, at the Pisces full moon, right? So that's what to look for you, Aquarius. And moving on to Capricorn now. Capricorn, for you, you've got the new moon transpiring in your third house. So this is a new moon that speaks to something getting off the ground in relation to your immediate environment and the people in it. The third house is a very busy place. It speaks to things like your siblings, and the people that maybe even close friends that feel like siblings, cousins, neighbors, community members. It has to do with things like your, like the short distance commutes and trips that you make. It can be the daily communications that you have with people and the vehicles of communication, right? So not only the methods of communication and your style of communication, like the thinking, the writing, those sorts of things, the speaking, but also the third house can speak to, the technology that is used. It can speak to things like commerce and marketing, in vehicles even, can be part of the third house significations. You're sort of the things that are just kind of part of your daily life and the communications. And the other thing that I can't forget to mention here is the third house also speaks to education, teaching and learning, and it focuses on those early years or beginner concepts kind of thing. So we see things like, like even daycare or elementary school, high school, or those learning the basics type of things, right, in life, teaching, learning in that realm. So these are all things that may come up for you at the time of this new moon, and things where you have an opportunity to begin something new that has a sense of hope and faith and optimism, because of the presence of Jupiter conjunct this new moon, as we spoke about in the introduction, and to gain some wisdom here as well, right? And to maybe bring, there may be a sense of something revolving around, justice happening here as well as it relates to the third house. And so, the caveat, of course, is that whatever this is, try to be realistic about it, hopeful. You know, it's like cautious optimism. Have a sense of cautious optimism here. Like, we don't want to be like just completely like getting so caught up in the moment of things feeling joyful and, you know, all those, the exuberance that Jupiter can bring, that we lose sight of reality, or we just kind of get our hopes up way too high, or we fall for something that takes us down the wrong path in the long run, or those sorts of things, right? So that's something to be mindful of. But oh my goodness, there's so many things I can think of here. Like, it could be starting a new, something new as it relates to education, for you or people in your life. It could be, there could be an opportunity here for some really nice, you know, little trips, to take some little trips. And they feel, you know, it's joyful and it's fun and enjoyable and relaxing and those sorts of things. It could be something involving technology here. You know, as it relates to those Piscean themes we were talking about, like digital cameras, or pieces of technology that, you know, something that has to do with like films and or the arts in some way as well can be a focus here. All right, so listen to the introduction, definitely, Capricorn, and I'm going to move to Sagittarius now, where Sagittarius, this new moon is gracing your 4th house. This new moon in Pisces, together with Jupiter, is bringing something new into your experience of home, family, your ancestry, your roots, your place of living, your sense of emotional security, issues around parenting and your own parents potentially. So these are all 4th house themes, right? So it can be a time where there's an increased sense of hope and optimism, you know, and maybe spiritual connection even with family, maybe a sense of, you know, all in this together. It could be there's growth happening in the family, and quite literally an expansion of the home, or something hopeful happening around the home. It could be, or with, you know, your parents, or parenting in general. You could just feel emotionally, like your sense of emotional security could be, get a hit of like faith, trust, optimism, those sorts of things. Also, there's a chance here to gain some wisdom, and maybe, you know, or depart some wisdom. You know, you as the, you know, who will be the ancestor at some point in time, or gaining wisdom from ancestors or family members, or these sorts of things. There can be, real estate can be involved here in the 4th house. So again, maybe, you know, a hopeful time as far as that goes. But also, this makes me think of course, keeping in mind that tendency for Jupiter and also Neptune to have to kind of like really having things over the top, and maybe not having us not see things quite clearly, and being overly optimistic, or, you know, overspending on a home or something like that, because we are so in love with it, right? Like, it's just, it's making us so joyful. And that's great, and that's fantastic. Just don't overstep your capabilities, or you know, the boundaries, sort of thing. Just be mindful of that. Be mindful that, yes, this can be fabulous. Something can be very fabulous here, you know, at this new moon, but you may only be seeing all the good in it, which, you know, there's a time and a place for that, and that's fine. But if somewhere down the road there's a, you know, sort of the chinks in the armor start to appear, then just don't be surprised. It doesn't mean it's going to be like bad or crappy. You know, it's not likely actually with what's going on at the time of this new moon. It's just that, you know, be realistic is what I'm trying to say. But you know, be ready for the hand of grace as well, and welcome it and seize the opportunities that arise, like we were talking about in the introduction. So yeah, that's for you, Sagittarius. I think that's enough said there. And we're going to move on to Scorpio now. So Scorpio, Scorpio rising. This new moon is happening in your 5th house. And that has to do with what brings you joy and pleasure, with your creative self-expression, you know, how you shine as an individual out in the world. It has to do with children, your children you're associated with. It has to do with, you know, even issues around like pregnancy and that kind of thing. So, and what you do for fun, right? So this can be hobbies, special interests, sports, those sorts of things. These can all be subjects. These are all subjects that are possibilities when it comes to the 5th house. So with this new moon happening here, it is the opportunity to begin something new in relation to those themes. It may be something that you conceive of and that you initiate, or that, you know, just comes into your awareness at this time, revolving around those themes. And it can feel optimistic and jovial and uplifting and abundant and lucky, you know, and fortunate because of Jupiter there. And we can gain wisdom from it. There can be justice revolving around these issues as well that we see coming in, right? And so whatever this is, look for it to grow over the next couple of weeks, where we'll have a culmination point at the new moon in Virgo, at the full moon in Virgo. But then even further down the road, 6 months time, at the full moon in Pisces, right in the same area of the sky. So whatever you begin now will reach a point of bearing fruit, or of coming to this kind of crescendo at those moments. And so, you know, this could be something really amazing happening in the life of your children, or again, children you're associated with. It can have to do, because it's in Pisces, right? And Jupiter's there. Like, this can be things like the arts are involved here in some way, shape, or form. Some sort of compassionate field. It can have to do with, you know, hopefully not lacking boundaries. That's the thing that we want to sort of be aware of when we have this influence of Jupiter and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, where we can, things can sometimes seem too good to be true, or we can look at things through rose-colored glasses and not really be seeing the reality, or just our expectations could be a little out of whack, right? And that's not to say that whatever transpires is not good and hopeful and ultimately cause for celebration. It's just that, you know, especially after the last 2 years, I think any little win that we have, we run the risk of kind of like blowing it out of proportion, and that it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened. And, you know, fair enough. But it's just good to be mindful of the possibility of that. But you can get a lot of joy right now for something like, maybe you're reading a new like activity or hobby, or creative project, or this could be a really potent time for pregnancy, if that's something that is of concern to you. You know, so those are all things to be mindful of and to put your attention on if you are actively working with the energies of this new moon, right? Actively and intentionally. But also just keep your eyes and ears open for what opportunities may arise, for what may come into your awareness as it relates to these fifth house themes and something sort of new and hopeful, right, transpiring here. So that's for you, Scorpio. I'm going to move on to Libra, where Libra, you have this new moon happening in your sixth house. So Libra rising. The new moon is bringing a sense of hope, faith, optimism, joy, abundance, growth, potentially wisdom, potentially justice, to areas, the areas of life, like the sixth house speaks to your daily work. So the daily grind, right? The checking off the ticky boxes, the work you do on the day to day, whether it's through your paid job or unpaid, what you are in service to and who you are in service to. It can speak to your like issues around illness and health, and even to pets, if that's something that is relevant to you in your life. So look for this sense of optimism and faith perhaps to return here, growth, abundance, a chance to begin for a fresh start here, that involves these sixth house themes. Now, just with the caveat, that I keep saying to everybody, that Jupiter and Neptune, both in Pisces, can have this effect of blowing things out of proportion and making it too good to be true, or making us a little bit sort of like not willing to, or not able to kind of see the reality, right? So we may get a little bit too hopped up on optimism, and then if we get down the road, if there are glitches, it can feel like we didn't see it coming. So just be mindful of that. But ultimately, it is a very hopeful time. So like just some practical examples. You could be starting a new job that really feels hopeful, that is bringing in more abundance or more opportunities for fun even. Or your health, your physical health could be getting, you could be feeling better. You could get some good news when it comes to a health issue. You could get a new pet that brings a lot of joy into your life, or something, good happening as far as that goes, as far as pets go, as far as your health goes, as far as your daily work goes and what you are in service to. And there can be lessons learned here. Like, right, I want to really remind us, because I think a lot of people don't focus on this particular characteristic of Jupiter, this opportunity to gain wisdom, right? And to focus on justice where appropriate. And that's something that can be possible as well with this new moon. So I look for this, whatever happens at the time of this new moon, whether it's what you intend or what the universe intends for you, look for this to reach a culmination point in a couple of weeks' time at the full moon in Virgo. And then further down the road, like 6 months' time at the full moon in Pisces, in the same area of the chart for you. So that's for you, Libra. I'm moving on to Virgo now. I'm losing my voice a little, but we will soldier on. Virgo, for you, this new moon is happening in your 7th house. So this is planting new seeds of intention. This is a fresh start in terms of your close personal relationships, right? The 7th house is the house of one-to-one relationships. This can be your significant other, right? Your spouse or your partner. It could be business partner related. It could be close friends or family members that you have a close connection to, or sort of one-to-one connection to. The 7th house also speaks to contracts and agreements. And it speaks to rivals as well, our rivals, our known rivals, right? The people that we can be in like competition with. But overall, it is the house of relationship, the house of the others in our life. So there's an opportunity here, again, for a fresh, optimistic new start, right? And one, there may be abundance and growth and expansion that goes on here. And this can actually be like in the life of your partner, for example. Your partner is in some way, shape, or form, expanding or growing, or business partnerships are expanding or growing, there's a focus on wisdom or justice with the conjunction to Jupiter here. But it feels hopeful, right? And an opportunity for and a reason to have some hope and some faith. And your partner could be, something lucky could happen for them, which then in turn impacts you as well. Or luck can happen in relationships or in business partnerships, or those sorts of things. And what I will say, that I've been saying to all the signs, and that I said at the beginning of the video, is just the thing we have to be mindful of is that Jupiter and the co-presence of Neptune here can have a tendency to kind of have us seeing through rose-colored glasses, and maybe not seeing clearly. So we may be sort of overly optimistic, right, and only wanting to see the good, and have faith and all of those things. And that's fine, that's fine. There's a time and a place for that. And this is a nice, lovely energy with this new moon. But just be mindful that, if everything doesn't go exactly according to plan down the road, that doesn't mean it's not still good, right? Very rarely do even the best of situations not meet with some kind of challenge at some point. So just be mindful of that. But all in all, a really good opportunity for a fresh start in terms of relationships, or for your, again, your partner, those seventh house, or a new contract or something like that, or a new contract for your partner, something along those lines, right? So that's for you, Virgo. And I am going to move on to Leo now. So Leo, for you, the new moon is gracing your 8th house. And there is an opportunity here for a fresh start, for a new beginning, for hope and faith and optimism to be injected in terms of other people's resources and how that impacts your life. So these are things like debt, insurance, taxes, loans, bursaries, inheritance, lottery winnings. That's a rare occasion, but these sorts of things. And the 8th house also speaks to, I call it the house of our entanglements with other people, right? Our intimate entanglements with other people, which is, when people hear the word intimate, they automatically think of, like our sexual relationships. That's not necessarily what I'm saying here. The 8th house, speaks to intimacy at the psychological level as well. And it speaks to sort of like the skeletons in the closet, right? Our psychological kind of depths, and our psychological wounding and healing and that kind of thing. The 8th house is very much, as I have come to know it, and I have lots of planets in the 8th house, it's a house where things tend to be we are at the mercy of things beyond our control, right? And so there is this opportunity to build resilience. With 8th house issues, there is a call to kind of surrender, and to allow whatever transformation, that's another 8th house word, is going to happen, right? Needs to happen. The 8th house has this phoenix rising sort of energy, but the phoenix has to burn up before it rises, as I always say. And so all that to say, Leo, that there's an opportunity here, because this new moon in Pisces is a lovely new moon with this conjunct Jupiter, and the sextile to Uranus as well in Taurus. There can be something good happen here. This could be, I don't know, things like you get an inheritance you didn't expect, or a tax break you didn't expect, or your more money comes in through a partnership in some way. An opportunity happens there. There is a chance for some kind of hopeful outcome, as it relates to sort of these eighth house themes that I've been speaking about. Now, the one caveat is we just have to be careful that we're not looking at things too much through rose-colored glasses, and we're not being overly optimistic. And then somewhere down the road, reality hits and we're like, oh, well, that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Or something happens that we kind of weren't foreseeing. But all in all, this is a time where there is an opportunity for some goodness here. Jupiter is the great benefic, so Jupiter's here to sort of lend a helping hand. Hopefully this isn't a time where, like, because this is the sort of house of other people's resources and those things like taxes and debt and all of that, where we're not seeing a Jupiterian influence in the wrong direction. But because of the other factors involved, like I don't foresee that that's the case for the vast majority of people. I think this is quite hopeful. So it might be a good time for you to initiate some kind of agreement with a financial institution that goes very well for you. Better than expected. Something like that. Right? So I'm going to leave that there, Leo, and I'm going to move on to Cancer now, where Cancer, this new moon is gracing your ninth house of expanding your horizons, of foreign travel, what you learn from other people, of your worldview and your philosophy and your belief system. Of the ninth house even speaks to things like the law and justice. It speaks to publishing. It speaks to teaching and learning, and usually that's of like at higher levels, college, university, this sort of thing, and bigger concepts. So this is what's happening. This new moon is injecting this sense of luck and faith and hope and optimism and all these lovely Jupiterian things into the ninth house. There can be an opportunity like that comes up for maybe travel, or for a massive shift in your perspective or your worldview that comes through a Jupiterian figure, like a teacher, or a wise person, or a judge or something like that. Even it can be an opportunity to start like a new course of study, or to teach in a setting like that. It can have to do with, again, like I said, travel, some opportunity for kind of travel, or something that involves foreign, people and places in some way, shape, or form. And so the idea here is to allow that, hand of grace to come in, be ready for it, seize the opportunity, intend for it, but also eyes wide open, right? And not be sort of like delusional about everything's going to go off without a hitch. Everything's going to be perfect. We have to be aware that the combination of Jupiter and Neptune there in Pisces can have us being a little bit too too there's such a thing as being like taking it too far, as being too optimistic, right? To the point of kind of like foolishness. And so that's something to be mindful of. But all in all, it could definitely be a lovely opportunity for a number of things that I mentioned there for you. And whatever is intended now, or whatever is conceived of now, whether that's by you or the universe, right? Or other people in your sphere that impacts you, it's culminating, or it's coming to a point of bearing fruit, so to speak, in a couple weeks time at the full moon in Virgo, but then also down the road in 6 months time when we have the full moon in Pisces in the same area of the sky, right? Same area of the chart for you in the 9th house. So look for that. So that's for you, Cancer. I'm going to move on to Gemini now, where Gemini, you have this new moon transpiring in your 10th house, which is a very public house. So this has to do with your career. It has to do with the legacy you wish to leave. It has to do with authority and authority figures and your relationship to authority. It has, and your own authority. It has to do with your public persona and your public reputation. These kinds of things are very 10th house related. And so this is where the new moon is happening for you. And it can be, as I mentioned, a very optimistic time. Jupiter is there. It can be a time where it's, something hopeful and optimistic happens. There's a chance for growth and abundance, and a chance to gain wisdom. There can be a chance for justice here as well in the 10th house with a new moon in Pisces conjunct Jupiter, right? And then the co-presence of Neptune, and then we've got the sextile to Uranus and Taurus. We've got Neptune sextiling and trining the nodes. So whatever this is, there's opportunity here, and it's good to seize this opportunity intentionally, with the caveat that we don't want to just be too we don't want to go into it thinking that nothing negative can come of it, nothing bad can happen, sort of thing. And I mean, yes, this is like, I see this new moon as a bit of the hand of grace coming in, but it's also wise to keep our eyes wide open, right? And to know that nothing's ever all good or all bad, but just be mindful that whatever transpires now, if some glitches happen down the road, like, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's all bad. It's just like, expect that maybe things seem amazing right now, and that doesn't mean they're not, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be any challenges as it relates to whatever this is for you. And so this can be like, I see this, a number of things, potentials here, a new career that allows for more abundance, and it's hopeful and it feels good. The expansion of of your career, a chance to leave a legacy that involves wisdom and justice potentially, or that has you in the public eye in some way, shape, or form, as a bit of a figure for wisdom and justice potentially. It can be, career growth and expansion. It could be like a raise or a promotion that happens. It could be some kind of interaction with, with authority and your own authority. It could be, and that's happening in a public sort of way. So these are the themes that I see playing out for you, Gemini, keeping in mind that this new moon, whatever is intended here, wherever gets off the ground, will come to a point of culmination at the full moon in Virgo in 2 weeks' time, and then further down the road, 6 months' time, at the full moon in Pisces in the same area of the sky for you. So look for that, right? So that's for you, Gemini, and I'm going to move to Taurus now, where Taurus, you've got the new moon happening in your 11th house, right? This is the house of the group. This is the house of your friends, your allies, your supporters, your hopes and dreams for the future, benefactors, right? People that can help you reach your hopes and dreams, organizations, clubs, associations, these sorts of things that we're part of. So with a new moon in Pisces in this area that's conjunct Jupiter, and with the co-presence of Neptune, right? And we've got the sextile to Uranus and Taurus, which is in your sign. There is an opportunity here for a fresh new start that feels expansive and abundant and really growth oriented, and joyful and optimistic, and potentially that revolves in some way, shape, or form around notions of wisdom, and justice, even, with Jupiter there. And so, there's a real opportunity here, to begin something new. It could be like you're starting a new online group, or you are somehow connected to a group of people that feel very Jupiterian, or that you may be somehow connecting with some sort of a teacher or a wise person, or you may be that figure in a group setting. I could see, like, if you run an online group or something like that, because 11th house, that can be, that can speak to that. There could be an opportunity for growth here and expansion of that. Now, keeping in mind that, or there's an opportunity for, like some support or allies or supporters, to kind of hold you up now, right? That buoyant sense of Jupiter. But keeping in mind, like I said, there's always this caveat here when it comes to Jupiter and the co-presence of Neptune in Pisces, where we can have a tendency to not see things clearly, right? To see things through rose-colored glasses, to see things as we wish them to be rather than as they are, to get an inflated sense of optimism, or an inflated sense of justice or wisdom, even, are all potentials here with Jupiter and with this new moon. So, there is definitely this sense of, the hand of grace here supporting us, but at the same time, be mindful that, there may be glitches at some point down the road, and that's okay. Whatever is getting off the ground now can feel really good. But if it feels too good to be true, we might want to just listen to that voice a little bit, and not to say, we should scrap the idea or anything like that. It's just a, cautious optimism. I've used this phrase before. So that's what's going on for you, Taurus. And I think I'll leave that there for you. And I'm going to move on to, last but not least, in this scenario, we have Aries. So Aries, for you, you've got the new moon happening in your 12th house. And this is a place of what goes on behind closed doors, what goes on in the subconscious, what goes on when we are resting and recuperating and, potentially convalescing, relaxing, in retreat from the world, so to speak. The 12th house speaks to endings, and it speaks to secrets, our blind spots. It can speak to literal places that are kind of tucked away from the world. So places like spiritual retreat centers, places like hospitals, hospices, rehab facilities, prisons, these sorts of things, right, are all 12th house related. And it's our dream life. It's our connection to the unseen world. So these are all 12th house themes. And this new moon conjunct Jupiter with the co-presence of Neptune there can feel, like a healing balm in some ways. There's a fresh start on offer here, and it's hopeful and it's optimistic. And it's expansive, and there may be elements of wisdom, seeping in, and justice. potentially too, with the presence of Jupiter there. So there could be, you know, if you're somebody connected to like some kind of, say, like a spiritual retreat center, there could be an opportunity for growth and expansion, or something good coming to you through that avenue. Or if you are somebody who works in a setting, a healthcare setting, like a hospice or a rehab facility or something like that, there can be themes of again, abundance, of hope, of justice, of wisdom that you're dealing with at this time. There can be a sense of faith restored when we've got Jupiter in the 12th house as well. There can be, you know, even like sort of hopeful messages and things and wisdom coming to you through your connection to the unseen, through your dreams even. There can be hopefulness and faith and good fortune coming through endings and losses in some way. So, you know, the caveat is with this energy, as I mentioned to all the signs and at the beginning of this video, that we have to be mindful to not see things as we wish them to be rather than as they are. Like, and I don't mean like, by that I don't mean you shouldn't have hope and faith and vision for the future and all of that. I don't mean that. I mean that sometimes we can have a tendency to, you know, have the blinders on, to see things through rose-colored glasses, and then later down the road we kind of get a reality check, right? Because we weren't seeing things clearly. The other thing I will say with this energy in the 12th house is be mindful of unhealthy escapism, right? Through the use of sort of like too many substances and things like that. If it's, you know, if doing something like a retreat or a rehab or something like that has been on your radar for a while, this can be a really good time to do that. A really good time. You know, with the caveat that it may not be as easy as you anticipate right now, but that's okay. You do have that Jupiterian helpful, hopeful influence there. So I think that I've said enough, and I'm really losing my voice right now. So apologies for that. Hopefully next time I see you, all of this will be gone. And I'm wishing you all the best with this new moon in Pisces. Let me know how it goes for you. I'd love to hear how things are playing out. And if you're willing to share, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And, you know, share with your friends and family. That is always really helpful. If you know somebody else that has an interest in astrology or might want to hear what I have to say, then I would love it if you would do that. Okay, take good care. Bye for now.